Good morning. It's Sunday morning, February 20th. This is Denise Dryden here out of Whitefish, Montana in the middle of a Arctic storm. It's going to be kind of fun. So today I want to talk about training our minds. Because as we're sort of coming up with like the worry, like I was thinking about this Arctic storm, like it's going to drop down to 11 below in a couple of days and sort of inching its way there. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be. And then I thought, yeah, that's that lack of training thing that happens with me when I let my mind just run rampant, right? Here we go. So with all these things that are going around or going on right now in our world, in our community, within ourselves, within our family, within the global perspective, whether it's these loosening of restrictions or tightening of restrictions, control, whether there's convoys and protests, whether there's solar flares. Those are the things that I put on the top list of what's going on right now. And it makes sense to me that that's going to bring up some irritability. It's going to bring up some agitation. We might get angry. We might get fearful. You know, what I noticed for me was with this weather is that I started to feel worried like, okay, do I have enough if the power goes off? What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. I noticed that I get off balance and that I'm a little bit more reactive and sort of wanting to share it around like, hey, get ready. And so this is more than usual. I almost every single session I had this week was introducing deeper ways of managing the solar flares because they're intensifying and they're hitting us more and more. If you want more information on solar flares, I've done two now since the beginning of the year, so you can go back and look at those on whatever mode you're on right now, okay, if media. So when we focus on the training of the mind, what came up was let's focus on training. Because, we know there's lots of mindfulness, there's lots of concepts of what to do with our mind. And at the same time, if we focus on training, it gets kind of interesting. Because what I do always is I go to the dictionary in the morning and sort of start gathering these pieces of information so that I can see how they all fall together. So when we train, it's the most obvious, which made me laugh. It's a series of railroad cars that are pushed or pulled by a locomotive. I'm like, yeah, okay. And it can be a long line of moving people, animals, or vehicles, like a wagon train. And I'm watching 1883, so I was like, okay, got that one. And then it got interesting. To teach, to make fit, to qualify, or to become proficient at something. So I think of sales training. I think of tech training, medical training. All of these pieces, educational aids, everything that we do in order to be proficient and qualified, right? To form by instruction, discipline, or drill. And I think of drill sergeants. I think of, that sort of stiff, hard approach that is through instruction, discipline, or drill, or it's just within very firm parameters of you will learn this, and this is what we need to have some proficiency at by the time you're done with this. It's also to prepare ourselves physically. So we train at the gym. We work with trainers, right? We are working on balancing. We even train with nutritionalists, right? So we can balance our physical being. And then the last one was to direct the growth of, which I loved. And so I was thinking of plant, or like, me with this wild hair. How do you start to cultivate it and shape it by bending it or pruning it or tying it so that it grows in a certain way? Right? So we're looking at some very traditional ways of training, and we're also looking at some softer approaches to how to train. So we train people. We train people in work, with new jobs, with roles. We train kids. I was thinking of like, all right, now I have a granddaughter who's working with forks and spoons and cups and all of that, right? Potty training is down the road. I think I've worked with 5 different clients over the last 3 years on potty training techniques when there's frustration within the parent, right? I think of dogs, cats, horses, cattle, any kind of animal, but specifically with dogs. When you're house training a dog, or how to stay on a leash, or how to do interactions at dog parks in public, what we're doing is we're working with what's what's behavior, what's well-behaved dog, what's an out-of-control, chaotic dog, and what happens when we apply that to our brain, right? What happens when our brain isn't very well-behaved or chaotic? And so when we look at the brain and it starts to spin, we're not connecting to our body. We're not putting the pieces together of this is there out there, and this is me, and this is how I'm embodying it. We're not in alignment with our health. We might be making choices constantly, whether it's quantities of alcohol, self-medicating, whether it's sugars, whether it's food, whether it's lack of exercise, whether it's stress. And we're not learning more ways to deal with this. We're sort of putting it off and saying, I think I'm fine, which is where our brain's going like, I like being in control. And if you ever worked with a toddler who's like, I got this, you're kind of like, brain and toddlers are about the same, right? And when your mind isn't well-behaved and helping you, it goes into erratic storytelling and stress, reactions, temper tantrums, anger, and you're thinking, okay, so something's off here, and I don't know quite how I'm going to approach this. So we have some work to do. We have some work to do because our mind is that central command center, right? And it sort of assesses and it distributes fight or flight. It does all of these things like go here, don't do this, do this. It sends directions to the body, and it manages all of the collections of data we come in, our thoughts, our creativities, our the ways that we see things, right? And the way that we assess and delegate things. So when we bring concepts and thoughts into form, which is what, our thoughts turn into form, which means we create our own constructs. We build our own realities. We help our physical body, and we can harm our physical body by bringing things into form in front of us. If we're worrying over and over and over again, it starts to show up as disease in our body. There's a lot of correlations between when the mind-brain energy starts to become chaotic, it goes into choices of stress and worry. It goes into, I'm going to grab this piece of paper out of the way, it goes into distress. It goes into chaos, right? So, some of this is easy for us to manage and some of it isn't. And so, I was kind of working with a girlfriend last week who has this massive computer with a lot of storage on it. And her organization system was just like pieces all over and 25 files open. And I was just like, I can't help you because my brain can't wrap around that. So what I was feeling was there was a system for her, but for me, it felt scattered, or I would have wanted to organize it more. And I noticed that there was a reaction to me when there's chaos and what happens to my system, what I want to try to control, what I want to do, right? So here are the tips that I have for how to train your mind. And to do it I want you to use your imagination of one of two things that if you've ever done this before in your life, let's drop into what is it like to work with a young child or an animal that you love, right? So I want you to soften and go to the stories so that we're not looking at pushing or pulling or forcing or powering over. What we really are doing is we want to look at what happens when we have something in front of us that needs a different approach from us, right? So the first thing is that we're going to teach, we're going to form, we're going to direct, we're going to prepare, and we're going to do it with kind and compassionate uses, and we're going to come up with an honest assessment, like what's going on. We have this, what we want to do is we want to be gentle, but we want to bring it to presence, which is I'm going to start watching things, and I'm not going to judge you, and I'm not going to jump into, you silly person, you did this, or, start using all of the really heavy internal judgment that we have, right? When we assess things. We're not going to assess things from a harsh place. What we're going to do is go, oh, okay, now I'm seeing it. When this happens, this happens. So when you're potty training a toddler and you notice that they're all of a sudden like don't want to look at you and you realize, oh no, okay, so now I know something's happened, right? Number 2, look at the cause and effect of the patterns. and go into discovery. So you now that you see that, you go to the cause and effects, which is, how often do I get angry? How often do I feel out of control? How often do I go into overwhelm, right? I'm working with a young girl in high school, and she's noticing that her teachers in her class are in some stages of disconnect. And then it was kind of like, yeah, we all are right now. That's right. So we're putting these pieces together to see the pattern. Solar flare, 3 times a week. Nobody wants to do any homework. No one's sleeping at night. They're coming in cranky in the morning. Okay, I'm putting these cause and effects together so that we're doing it again with that soft compassion, right? Number 3, when this happens, I feel. So then we take the observing of the cause and effect, and we go to the internal part, which is, what happens in my body? Do I start to get really agitated? Do I get hot and uncomfortable and restless? Or do parts of my body start to hurt, like stomach aches or pounding migraines twice a week? What happens when there's muscle pain or joint pain or shoulders and neck, right? Or lower back. These things that cause and effect, where's it show up in my body? Cause and effect, where's it? So we're feeling it in our body, number 3. Number 4, find ways to make your mind and your body feel better. Find ways to make them feel better. So whether it's slowing down, I'm not going to push so many things. I'm not going to try to get as many things done today. I'm going to focus on the one big thing that I need to do and fit others in around if I have time. So we're paying attention more. We're speaking gently. We're redirecting. We're choosing a different direction, and we're doing something new, which is we're starting to create ways to go, like every single time I'm in a hurry, and my toddler, and I say, do you have to go to the bathroom? And they're like, nope. And then, the second we start to go out the door, all of a sudden it looks like they do have to go to the bathroom. And then you go into anger, stress, acceleration, and then you're now putting a patterned hot reaction into a vulnerable situation of training, right? So when we train our brain, or when we train our minds, right, to calm down, slow down, okay, why don't we just drop everything and let's go sit on the potty and see how it's going, right? Then we're not pushing, and we're not trying to force things, and we're out of reaction. And then number 5, the last one is to acknowledge, empower, recognize, validate, whatever words you want to use, that you're going a different direction. Oh, wow, wait, I slowed things down. I made a different choice. I didn't freeze up, right? I didn't go into reaction. I made a different choice. I'm working with something, not against it. I'm dropping things and I'm slowing the pace down. I noticed that I'm growing in this area. I've gotten much calmer. And anyone who's known me from when I was in my 30s and 40s with 3 kids in school, and can pretty much say that I was an angry, hot mess. So being able to train my mind out of those reactions, or to catch them and say, this is when I do this and I get agitated and I start to look at the faces of the people around me, I realize I'm in my own chaos and I need to do something about this. So training ends up being something that we know it in other realms. We know it in other parts of our world. Now when we say, hey, how do I go from maybe mindfulness or just give myself some quiet time to how do I train myself in and out of reactive states? How do I train myself to slow down and be more observant? How do I train myself to be kinder to me first and to those around me? Because we're changing something and we're dealing with changes around us. So we need to sort of drop into some proficiency at how to deal with these changes. So this is the kind of stuff I do in coaching and weekly. If you're new to this site, please subscribe, put some comments in there for me. Tell me what else you want me to talk about. I would love that. And I will see you next Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.